talk about everything you need to know to prolong your AFL career. So whether you're a developing athlete looking to build habits so you can play for as long as possible, or you're at the stage of your career where you're trying to lengthen the amount of time that you can play and reduce the likelihood of injury, particularly severe injuries that could end your playing days. And even for those that are thinking about getting back into playing, I know a few of you have reached out on our social media, and some of you are working with our coaches on actually getting fit in season. You're not playing, but using this time as an off-season, pre-season period to get yourself right physically and get into the good habits so you can start your pre-season back at your local football club. So stick around. If you're tuning in on our YouTube channel or on TikTok, feel free to use the comment section to post some questions, and I'll make sure to do my best at answering them. But I've got 6 tips, so we'll get straight into it. Stick around. I've also got an aerobic conditioning workout that you can do over the summer, or for those that aren't playing and you're not in season, or for those that are playing, you could even do it on a bye week to keep yourself aerobically fit. So stick around for the end. I'll provide that power tip as well as the upcoming guests on the podcast. But number one, first tip, emphasize key compound movements in the gym. You can't overestimate the importance of simple compound lifts to maintain your strength. As we know, with football, a lot of the injuries happen through contact. So if you can maintain a good level of strength over your career, or if you're starting out, if you can build good strength early, that's going to put you in good stead for preventing the chaotic nature of the game. So you're able to keep your feet in the contests and protect your joints. So things like squats, deadlifts, even your heavy pressing as well, and your pulling movements, so like bench press and bench pull. So you're getting a strong press in to keep your shoulders healthy, and your ability to be able to push and prevent being tackled, as well as your pulling strength just to keep your upper back strong and your shoulders strong. So really important. Make sure you're doing those simple movements consistently, typically in season at least once a week, and then over off season, pre-season up to 2 to even 3 times a week. Tip number 2, incorporate explosive movements. So number 1 would be making sure you sprint during training at some point. So that might be your main training session on a regular basis, but not just sprints. We want to, for max velocity exposure, also want to work on your accelerations, which you're going to do far more than sprinting in a typical game. So making sure you're getting regular exposure to high intensity accelerations, things like your first 3 steps, so 10-meter accels, maybe a power band around your hips to work on really overemphasizing your first 3 steps and that forward lean that we want for fast switching of the legs. So working on acceleration, working on your change of direction technique, so efficiency in your lateral movement, and also in the gym doing some form of power training, whether you do it as a primer the day before game day, or maybe in the middle of the week when you're starting to transition from that recovery mode to more your performance mode, preparing for the upcoming game, doing an explosive 20-minute session. And that's really important, not only from a performance point of view, but also for your body, so you're really well conditioned to the explosive nature of the game. As I mentioned, injuries tend to happen with contact, but they also tend to happen with the fast nature of moving at a fast speed and then suddenly needed putting on the brakes with a deceleration activity or a change of direction work. So making sure you're regularly exposed to those fast movements is really important early on in your career, and also even when you're prolonging your career. I recently did a podcast actually on that last week. Really important, particularly for those that are a bit older that haven't exposed themselves to plyos. Some key things to consider when you're bringing plyometrics into your training when you haven't done them for some while. Tip number 3, maintain an aerobic conditioning stimulus. So if you're in season, obviously we want to reduce the amount of contact to your running contacts. So we may use things like the bike, swimming, so off-feet conditioning where you're not using that ground contact forces to look after your joints in season where you're doing those high match loads on the weekend. That's where we can use aerobic conditioning on the bikes and like I mentioned, swimming, or even just some total body circuit stuff where you're getting your heart rate up nice and high, and usually the rest periods are quite low. So in pre-season is ultimately the time we want to build your aerobic base, and that's important for football because it's a long game. So the fitter you are, the better you're able to not only handle the repeat high intensity efforts, but also able to recover week after week from playing over 10Ks of total distance, 1,000 meters of high speed running, a couple hundred meters of sprint, and plus all the body contact and change direction. So it's a lot of load and it's quite intense on the body. The more aerobically fit athlete will be able to handle that load and recover quicker 1 day, 2 day, 3 day post compared to those that are anaerobically fit. So it's really important from a body health point of view to maintain your fitness over your career. So aerobic conditioning, really, really important. Number 4, probably something that it gets talked about quite a bit, but you can't go wrong with making sure you're looking after your body health. So recovery, and a nice simple way that you can approach this, especially in season, is for every minute that you're working out, you want to be working in. So simple example, if you've got a day's training where you're spending 45 minutes in the gym and then you've got a 60-minute on-field session, there's nearly 2 hours of work that we need to try and work in on that body. So you might get a 30-minute deep tissue massage, and then you might go for a 30-minute light recovery in the pool, and then do 30-minute stretch and foam roll, for example. So finding ways that you can not only focus on building up your resilience and building robustness through training and hard training, but equally respecting the game, respecting the stress and load that you're putting on the body, and working in as well. So that's really, really important. You can't just be piling on more and more and more work on the body and expect the body to cope. You make sure that you're really focused on recovery, and that comes quite intuitive to the older athletes that have been in the system for a while. And they've understood how much better they can feel and how much faster they can recover from the previous game when they do emphasize recovery and prioritize recovery. So if you can get into those habits early on in your developing career, I think it will pay dividends later on and might be the reason why you end up prolonging an extra 2 to 3 up to 4 seasons over your playing career. So prioritize recovery. Remember that simple calculation for the time that you're working out. Try and replicate with working in on the body. Tip number 5, looking after your health. So living an elite lifestyle, the big 3, sleep, stress, and nutrition. So making sure you're looking after those 3 on a daily basis. There shouldn't be a single day where you're not prioritizing those 3. We know the negative effects of poor night's sleep. We know the negative effects of not being self-aware and recognizing life stresses and football stresses and what that can have on the mind. And of course, your nutrition, the fuel you're putting into your body is going to dictate how much energy you're going to have, how well you're going to recover, and how well you're fueling for your upcoming training and game sessions. So those 3 are non-negotiables. You have to be focused on them. If you're not, you're going to be negatively affected for sure. Research shows it, and even for those that have been following our advice for some time now, you would have recognized the importance of difference between a good night's sleep and not. Same with your mental health as well as your nutrition. So making sure that you're consulting experts in that area, you're educating yourself, and you're finding a routine that works well for you over a week. Don't just think 24 hours before the game where you're thinking, okay, that's where I'm going to eat well, I'm going to hydrate well, I'm going to do some mindfulness, and I'm going to focus on a good night's sleep. It needs to be a week by week prospect, something that you're just valuing on a daily basis and you're getting in good habits, and the consistency is key. So routine with what you're eating, routine with your sleep and wake up times, and routine with your mental health management and self-awareness. So making sure you're looking after yourself. And then the last tip, consult experts, particularly those that maybe you've come off a significant injury like an ACL. How are you constantly, even when you're back to return to play, return to performance, what are you constantly doing to managing that asymmetry? Because there no doubt will be some. So what are you doing in the gym? What are you doing in part of your warm-up, your prep, your whole preparation to make sure that you're mitigating the risk of further injuries? And even if it's not a significant injury, it might just be a simple hamstring strain. What are you doing to make sure you're restoring your range of motion? You're stronger than you've ever been before the injury, and you're at great condition. So reach out to experts specifically to that injury, or make sure you work with an AFL strength and conditioning coach so you've got a really strong understanding on what you need to do to not only not get injured again, but also not open yourself up to future injuries. So that's really, really important. Have some experts in your corner, so you've got a program that you're really clear on that's specific to you. It's customized, but also it's allowing you to play as long as possible. So hopefully those six tips, help. If you have any questions on any of them, let me know. I'm more than happy to answer on our socials, or you can email me at jack@propelicapro.com. Equally, if you want one of our coaches to work with you, or you want to follow the online program that I design, head over to propelicapro.com. We have a 14-day free trial, so make sure to check that out. Moving into this week's podcast, before I go into our recent LinkedIn Twitter poll, there were some interesting findings on that. There's still 3 days left to post. But kick it off, our episode recently was Scott Goldman, the performance psychologist of Golden State Warriors, has been postponed to next week. So you wouldn't notice I didn't do that interview last week. That's due to some work commitments. I had to reschedule that episode. So, yeah, it's to be confirmed. I'll post that on our Instagram once we've locked in that time, but it'll probably either be Tuesday or Wednesday this week. So I'll post that on our socials so you can find out. Our episode for this week will be with Ben Griffin. I just recently published and did that interview a week ago. So that's really important for those personal trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, exercise physios, anyone in the health and fitness industry that's running their own business. There's some great tips on how to stand out and build a brand from Ben. So he's clearly, with his social media following and the consistency he's been doing over the years, has got some great clues and some great tips for those starting out. So make sure to check it out. Then equally this Thursday, we've got another interview with a strength and conditioning expert with Scott Pollock from the QAS, and that time will also be confirmed. At this time, we've got it penciled in for Thursday at 3 p.m. Australian Standard Time, so make sure to tune in. Shout out to social media, Derek Vidal. Absolutely loved his episode. It's episode 337, so for anyone running their own business or is looking for some inspiration to health, fitness, anything really, you can apply this model where he talked about posting no 0 days. And what he means by that is the real difference is when it comes to success and sustainable success is consistency, and making sure that if you're wanting to get stronger, if you're wanting to get fitter, if you're wanting to have a really strong brand and a business, that there's no days that go past that you don't do anything towards that focus. So let's say you are wanting to get stronger. It doesn't mean you can do max strength training every day, but you might work on your non-training days, some form of recovery that's going to assist your training intensity the next day. If you're looking to build a social media following on Instagram, it might not mean you're posting every day, but perhaps you're having a day where you're brainstorming and thinking of creative ways, or you're doing some research to see what other brands are doing successfully. So it's just having that area, that mindset that every day you're putting a little bit in towards your craft, whatever that might be. So I think that really resonated with me. Absolutely love that post no 0 days approach. So check out his podcast. He's doing some great things. In terms of our LinkedIn poll for strength and conditioning high performance staff, there were some interesting findings. I asked what was more important for power development. Exercise selection, load, intent, or rest periods, and it was pretty profound. Exercise selection was 5%, load was 5%, rest periods 3%, intent, athlete intent was 87%. So it just goes to show, as a coach, our ability to influence the athlete's mindset, and when you're briefing them is really, really important. So they're really clear on how to have purpose with that exercise, how it's going to help their on-field performance, but also what to focus on, and keeping it really simple for that athlete, so they're not thinking of a million things when it comes to power development. They're focusing on one thing, whether it be you're working on their contact time and trying to reduce that, so hot coals, some external cues. Maybe they're pushing through the ground, like they're trying to put a hole through the ground when you're working on some more your power-based exercises with the trap bar jump, whatever it might be, but just using those cues that are just really simple, they're effective, they resonate with the athlete, and it's able to improve their output. So intent was the profound winner there. Tony Carney on Twitter, though, did have an interesting finding. He found for barbell and loaded activities, absolutely the intent is the one that's most important for power development. However, when it comes to bodyweight plyometric activities, he thinks creating an environment using a constraint-based approach, and therefore exercise selection, is more important. And where I can understand he's coming from here is that if you have hurdles out in front of the athlete, that constraint is going to force them to, and they have to rebound the jump to work on their contact time, and it's going to force them to make sure they're rapidly producing force quickly. So you can set up the environment to equally get the desired outcome of power development. So I thought it was a really good poll. Thank you for everyone that contributed to the poll. We've still got 3 days left because I'm hosting this weekly update a little bit earlier this week because we're on a 4-day break at Melbourne. So I thought this was a good opportunity to kickstart off the week doing it on Tuesday, where normally I do it on Thursdays. So there's a couple more days to go, but it looks like it's going to probably hold out that way. And I'll make sure to share on our Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter once we've found all the total votes are in. This week is going to be all about strength testing. So I'd love you to contribute. Do you prefer velocity, the velocity loss in the lift? Is it more your reps left, so the subjective, asking them after they've done a heavy effort, how many reps they have left in the tank, and using a calculation to work out an estimated max from that? Is it doing a rep max for the day, working up to a 3-rep max, a 4-rep max, 5-rep max, 1-rep max? Or is it potentially using force plate data, like a mid-thigh pull or a squat isometric, and how much force you can produce to see and to track the athlete's development that way? So it's not specific to the exercise, it's just about how much force they can put through the ground. So please contribute to that. What's your favorite way of strength testing athletes and getting an understanding of their development, but also from a max force point of view, but also how effective the programming is for them. So feedback to the coach. So I'll post that in the coming days on our LinkedIn, Twitter, so make sure to stay connected there. Aerobic conditioning workout. It is a simple one, more important for those that want to try and improve their work rate per minute, and also their ability to recover from effort. So that aerobic side that I talked about and how important that is. So if you get yourself to a football oval, it should be about 450 meters to 500 meters in diameter. You're going to start on the point post. You're going to jog to the 50, running around the ground. You're then going to run from the arc to the arc around the ground. Okay, so you're going to run right to the other 50, then you're going to jog through the point post and then walk from the point post to the other point post, and you're going to repeat that for, if it's 450 meter lap, go for 5 laps. If it's 500 meters, go for 4. So you're getting anywhere between around 2Ks of total distance continuously. So heart rate will be high, and then you can add, if in the summer, you could add a lap per week to that workout. So if you did it once a week, add a lap, do it for 4 weeks, and then reset and go back again. But hopefully you're reducing the amount of time it takes when you go back down to your original week 1, and see how much quicker you're getting through that workout and what is your average heart rate. And if your aerobic conditioning is better, you'll be able to get the work done in less time, but also potentially your heart rate's also less. So it's less stress, less exertion on your body. Therefore, you are fitter. So give that one a go. Thank you for tuning in for this week episode. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all our exercise tips and exercise examples, technique, as well as all our live chat shows. And if you could rate and review the podcast, that'd be greatly appreciated. I'll see you next week.